Morning, this is Windmere Creek in the southern Mazatzal Mountains. There's some water in it because about an hour ago it was actually raining, darn it. And I'm going to break here to dry my feet and talk some anime.
Time of Eve.
Time of Eve is a unique and witty sci-fi anime originally made for the web. In the not-too-distant future, androids have become quite sophisticated. Some well-to-do families purchase them for domestic chores, household cleaning, cooking, shopping, and serving. The latest models have even been made to look like humans. Riku is a high school boy whose parents are not around much. His mother works, so he and his sister are pretty much on their own, with the help of a humanoid household robot they call Sammy. Those glowing rings over its head not only mark it as an android, they change color and text as a status indicator. Riku is also a bit of a geek. His sister often accuses him of being what future mainstream media calls an android-holic, someone who treats an android as if it were a real human. Riku may think he does, too, but he'll soon find out he doesn't. Looking at the android's log files, he discovers that there's a visit to someplace he doesn't know. Curious, he decides to go find out what's there. Riku takes his school buddy Masaki along for the trip. Masaki's dad is part of a political group that opposes the spread of humanoid robots. With some irony, we'll eventually see that his dad is so busy working to limit the spread of humanoid androids, he's dumped the task of caring for his son off onto an older model domestic robot. But what the pair of boys find at the log file coordinates they found is a nondescript door. When they follow an android inside, they'll find a pleasant little cafe called Time of Eve. That cafe is run by the charming and friendly Nagi, who has only one rule. Inside Time of Eve, there's no discrimination between humans and androids. The boys soon notice that the android they followed inside isn't displaying the usual rings over its head anymore. Initially, they find this rather worrying, but some of the friendly, extroverted regulars of the cafe will soon set them straight.
ルールは守ってね。
ここってヤバい店。かもな。おじさんに言う？親父は関係ねえよ。
何が？しひりさんだって？ナギちゃんから聞いたの。ナギちゃんってのはカウンターの彼女ね。それでここ座っていい？どうやって来たの？誰かの友達？
いや、来たばっ。
The boys become fascinated with the cafe and return often after school and try to guess who's human and who's android. And they spend some time discussing the implications within Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. That means Nagi will have to remind them often about the cafe's rule. Each 15-minute episode is mostly a self-contained story that primarily covers a different visit to the cafe to converse with a different patron. Not all the customers are that hard to classify. Time of Eve is a thoughtful story told with real charm and considerable wit. It offers a lot of smiles and some surprises, and all the while it's laying the basis for a slightly more elaborate story. The final episode, which is slightly longer, pulls some previous hints together into a more plot-oriented dramatic story. Time of Eve only nibbles around the edges of the nature of consciousness. This isn't Ghost in the Shell. In fact, the future imagined by Time of Eve is refreshingly ordinary, neither the dystopian world of cyberpunk nor the utopian dreams of last century. There are some new technologies around, such as holographic projections, electronic ink, and inductive stovetops, and the androids, of course. But the quotidian world of the cafe, the school, and the boys' home are pretty much as they are today, just as the world today is a lot like the world was 50 years ago. Time of Eve has some interesting perspective on how we treat people, or androids, quite differently if we meet them as individuals, rather than part of some classification. In the cafe, without the visual signals to mark them and invoke our preconceived notions, it turns out these robots are indistinguishable from humans. Maybe they should have named the place after Alan Turing. Time of Eve also has some small commentary about parents delegating the raising of their kids to machines. After discovering the Time of Eve cafe and the secret life of robots, Riku sees androids in a new light. He suddenly notices that most people treat them as machines. He tries to understand how his own family's android, Sammy, can seem so devoid of emotions and personality at home when he knows there's something quite different inside that can enjoy a cup of coffee and make friendly conversation elsewhere.
質問。
何でしょうか？
いや、質問キャンセル。コーヒー。
かしこまりました。
Time of Eve was both written and directed by Yasuhiro Yoshiura, who also created Pale Cocoon. He's given his dialogue crispness, speed, and wit that's unusual in animation. The characters often talk rapidly, in partial sentences, and finishing each other's remarks or cutting each other off, which is the way real conversations sometimes go. It reminds me of Aaron Sorkin's dialogue style for the West Wing TV show last decade. It also means you'll be reading a lot of rapid-fire subtitles. I enjoyed the story, setting, and characters of Time of Eve so much, I almost forgot to mention the animation. It's amazingly good looking. The designs offer a lot of futuristic imagination in the details. It appears to me that it's mostly been done by 3D computer modeling, with only a few traditional hand-painted backgrounds. But whereas cell shading usually produces rather harsh shading and lighting effects, this has really mastered the variable focus and soft lighting technique, and it's very impressive. This isn't an action story. Most of the characters spend their time sitting around at school, home, or in the cafe talking, but what movement there is seems very natural. The music is mostly unobtrusive, offering some light themes that mostly underlie the quizzical and amusing nature of the story. There's a more orchestral piece for the final, slightly more serious episode. The direct-to-web episodes don't have the traditional opening sequence or song, though the last episode does have a final vocal for the closing credit scroll. To answer the tagline of the cafe, "Are you enjoying the Time of Eve?" I answer very much. I give this video 4.5 stars for many engaging characters, a thoughtful setting, and a truly unique storyline. I was both intrigued by the plot and amused by each episode as it unfolded. The 6 episodes are described as Season 1, and I hope that means there's another season coming. Meanwhile, I'm told that it's all been compiled into a movie version, and I'm hoping for a subtitled DVD of that someday. You can find the complete Time of Eve streaming for free over on Crunchyroll, and I humbly suggest that you go give it a try.
Thanks for listening.